That the freedom of speech extends to the freedom not to speak is so obviously and so deeply ingrained in our understanding of the protections afforded by the First Amendment that they've become a trope manifested in the phrase, "you have the right to remain silent." In fact, the Supreme Court ruling in the case that originated the phrase, now legally required as an extension of the Fifth Amendment in order for a prosecuting attorney to present evidence from a police interrogation, originated the now universally understood shorthand Miranda warning and Miranda rights. But here in Connecticut-istan, the anti-fascist party is happy to pen their contempt for the protections afforded by at least 3 amendments to law, with, originating in the state Senate, proposed Bill 180, which was referred to committee last Friday and reads as follows. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and General Assembly convened that Title IX of the General Statutes be amended to provide that 1. At the 2024 state election and each state election thereafter, all qualified electors shall either cast a ballot or provide a valid reason for not casting a ballot. 2. Following the 2024 state election and each state election thereafter, A. The Secretary of the State shall mail to all qualified electors who did not cast a ballot at the most recent state election a form inquiring as to why such elector did not cast a ballot, which form shall advise that valid reasons for not casting a ballot include travel, illness, conscientious objection, or such other reason as the Secretary may prescribe, and B. Failure to respond to such form with a valid reason shall result in a fine of $20 paid to the office of the Secretary of the State, which fine shall 1. Not be increased through penalty, fees, or accrued interest, 2. Not be the basis for criminal enforcement or denial of government services or benefits, and 3. Be directed to the State Elections Enforcement Commission for deposit in a citizens' election fund, except that an elector may perform 2 hours of community service for a Connecticut-based nonprofit organization if such elector is unable to pay such fine. 3. 1 month prior to the 2024 state election, the Secretary of the State shall mail to all qualified electors a notice that A. Explains the changes that will take effect beginning at the 2024 state election, as described herein, and B. Includes a statement that each qualified elector will be required to either cast a ballot, with the option to leave such ballot blank, or provide a valid reason for not casting a ballot. 4. At the 2022 state election and each state election thereafter, each ballot shall include, in sufficiently large type, a statement advising electors that they may leave any portion or the entirety of such ballot blank, and 5. Not later than January 1st, 2025, the Secretary of the State shall report on the implementation of such changes as described herein at the 2024 state election to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly, having cognizance of matters relating to elections. Just to be clear, Title IX defines an elector as follows. Elector means any person possessing the qualifications prescribed by the Constitution and duly admitted to and entitled to exercise the privileges of an elector in a town, which is separate from a presidential elector, which the title defines as follows. Presidential electors means persons elected to cast their ballots for president and vice president of the United States. So if you're a registered voter in Connecticut, what we're talking about is coerced voting, which is compelled speech because, obviously, voicing your vote, even if with pen and paper, is speech. That's right, vote or pay the fine, unless you want to tell us why it is you didn't vote, which again, is the very definition of compelled speech. Here in the US, we take compelled speech so seriously that even in criminal proceedings, in order to compel a witness to so much as take the stand, an individual subpoena must be obtained, and the subpoenaing of witnesses is both not easy and taken very seriously. I know this because I was subpoenaed. And in order to get me to voluntarily take the stand as a witness to a Class A felony, the DA in Georgia, where I was subpoenaed, committed to flying me in at my convenience, chauffeuring me around on their dime, shacking me up in the best hotel Savannah had to offer, providing me complimentary meals at my discretion for up to $100 a meal, and then still providing me due compensation for missed work. How seriously is this taken? Because this was a state crime and not a federal crime, if I refused, in order to serve the subpoena, the state of Georgia would have to apply to the state of Connecticut for extradition. And the state of Connecticut would then have to agree to lug my ass down to Georgia at Connecticut's expense, which, in the case of honestly innocent witnesses, for all intents and purposes, never happens. How seriously is this taken? If I complained even ex post facto that I was so much as inconvenienced by the DA's treatment of me and getting me to take the stand, I'd almost certainly have a defense for refusing to take the stand, and in many cases, might even have grounds for suit for just compensation for the inconvenience. How seriously is this taken? Even if, after all this, I wind up taking the stand, I can always plead the fifth, and there's nothing the court can do about it. And for those of you who saw the part about provide a valid reason for not casting a ballot and said, here's my reason, let me add a few more. Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's right, the Ninth Amendment was the founders' way of saying, obviously, if you have a right to speak, you have a right not to speak. Obviously, if you have a right to run your mouth, you have a right to hold your tongue. Which means, obviously, the Ninth Amendment creates a prima facie affirmative defense to not even reply when the Secretary of State asks you why you didn't vote. Which means, as defined, creates a facially obvious compulsion to respond in clear violation of the Ninth Amendment. The act itself would be in clear violation of the Ninth Amendment. But that's not where the fun ends, folks. Because what happens if you refuse to pay the fine? Failure to respond to such form with a valid reason shall result in a fine of $20 paid to the office of the Secretary of the State, which fine shall 1. Not be increased through penalty, fees, or accrued interest, 2. Not be the basis for criminal enforcement or denial of government service or benefits. So after consulting with my attorney friend, no, this doesn't mean there's no enforcement mechanism, and it 100% does mean the state can file a civil claim, which, in his words, means, quote, no proof beyond a reasonable doubt and no right to confront witnesses, end quote, and, quote, you would not get a second chance to defend, end quote. It also means that if you refuse to then pay the civil judgment, the state could just seize your assets. Of course, if you don't have the money, you'd be in arrears to the state, which means you could potentially lose your voting privileges for not paying what effectively amounts to a tax. 24th Amendment, Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for a president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. In short, if the bill is to actually be enforced and you decide to be stubborn, we can add a violation of the 24th Amendment to the mix. A rare grand slam of amendment violations from the anti-fascist party. But even if the amendments didn't exist, the right to speak freely is such a fundamental building block of our entire culture that the few instances of mass compulsion of speech are considered some of the worst evils ever graced the Western world, and even de minimis steps in that direction have been met with the strongest derision. And this is, if nothing else, the thing both proverbial sides most ardently agreed on. Until now. So for those of you who still think that both sides are moving towards their extremes, understand that even a handful of years ago, compelled speech bills like this one would not have been tolerated by either side. And now, the side that has shown no end to their contempt for free speech is the one introducing the most radical elements of their politic to the floors of our legislatures. One side is not pushing the radicals within their ranks to the fringe. Instead, they're electing them to our legislatures, and they're putting the politic of the radicals to the legislative pen, and even if this proposed bill doesn't pass, the fact that it was even introduced reveals exactly the direction that side is headed. This is the exact future I warned about just a few weeks ago, and we wonder why people are running out of this state. It's definitely going to fall on deaf ears, but Democrats, you need to either reel in your radicals or excise them. Otherwise, things are going to get a lot worse. Not better.